Hey everybody, Alex from Heavy New York once again. Today we got the legendary Appice brothers here to promote their new record, Sinister.
He's the Appice brother. I'm Appice.
Appice?
Yeah, he says it.
From now on, we're just going to call the album Appice.
Okay.
He says Appice, I say Appice, so he's wrong.
Yeah. But I'm more famous, so most people know us as Appice. So.
Okay.
And we're only kidding.
That was...
You'll get the knack of
it. I'm so glad you brought a tripod today, because I could right now it'll look like we're filming during an earthquake.
Yeah, we'll be doing this.
We got a lot of badoosh.
So the new record, Sinister, it's due October 27th to come out, and
no, October 26th.
Who's the artist?
No, I'm kidding.
Who's the artist?
Appice?
Appice, that's it. Yeah, Vinny goes by Appice. I go by Appice, and it confused a lot of people.
Yeah, like myself.
Confuses me.
But this record I know is like kind of like the first like collaboration between you two and stuff like that. So like
a studio collaboration.
Okay.
We did a live Drum Wars record a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
But this is the first time we actually spent time in the studio, starting from scratch.
Yeah.
And
from being in the game for so long with both of you guys, like what was kind of like, did you guys just feel this time in 2017 it was kind of like the appropriate time to finally get into a studio collaboration together?
Yeah, we always had a schedule problem because we've both been busy. We doing a million things, and it's time opened up where at the beginning of the year we said, why don't we start working on an album? That would be great. And so then we had this guy, our manager Jeff, put together a pledge music campaign.
Okay.
So we can get some funding, get a budget, and that did great. We did that, and then we started working on the album. Then eventually we got a deal on top of that with SPV Records. So it's more of the scheduling. It was a perfect time to do it for both of us. We were both home.
It was also we were going to book some gigs, and the manager said, this would be a lot easier and better to do if we had a new CD, and we can do this on Pledge Music, because he manages Anvil as well, and he did the same thing with Anvil. We said, all right, we didn't really know much about it at the time, and we did it, and it was successful, and then he went and got the record deal after we started getting some recordings done, and here we are.
That's incredible. Now, with all the stuff, because you guys have been in so many projects, like the stuff you've done with Dio and Ozzy and everything, and you with Vanilla Fudge and King Cobra, like, did you guys, with all the stuff that you have done, had like a blanket methodology behind your playing and kind of like just, sort of incorporated the same thing, or was every project you guys have been involved in a completely different methodology and mind frame?
Well, for me, it's always been pretty much the same, My style and what I do goes from Vanilla Fudge to Cactus to BBA to, to King Cobra to Blue Murder. It's just the only thing that changed maybe was the production of the records. Got better. But it's all been the same through my whole career, and it's pretty much the same with Vinny, I think.
Well, the music's kind of the same. Going from different projects. I like playing heavy music but it's working with different people that change. You're working with Black Sabbath, it's a different thing than working with the Dio band and other bands I've worked with. So that changes, the personalities in the band. But the music kind of stays around in the same place. It changes by who's different people that are involved in it.
Okay. So it wasn't like you guys started a new whenever you were entering a new project and stuff like that. It wasn't like, okay, I have to like learn the drums and stuff all over again or something like that.
No, even if like when I played with Ozzy, I was playing other people's drum parts, but I played them like I played them. Okay. And same thing with Rod Stewart. Even playing with Rod Stewart, it was like. I like we do so. Well, he'd be a great guy for a He'd be a great guy for like an audience, for like Dice or somebody, comedian audience.
You just saved us a fortune on like that fake studio audience.
There you go.
Yeah.
What, did you film that?
He's dying. I forgot what I was saying. No, but you know, like even when I play with Rod Stewart, which is more at the time of he was a rock pop artist. I still didn't change my style that much to do that. I was still playing heavy rock drums, you know.
Okay.
That's why you fired him for that too.
They used to call me the dentist. I did too many fill-ins.
Wow. I see what you did there. That's one of the best drum jokes I've heard. Now, with this particular record, I know you've had a lot of people collaborating on it. Like I know that Ron Bumblefoot Thou was featured. I know that Joel from Whitesnake was featured on it. So for the people who haven't heard it yet, you're not going to hear it till October 27th, or 26th.
Yeah, 27th.
But can we be expecting a lot of diversity with all these different musicians? Yeah.
Well, not really, because you know the except 2 or 3 songs, all the songs were written with the guitar player from a guitar playing riff, you know, and the riff was heavy rock, heavy metal, whatever you want to call it. So it was all in the same kind of thing. The 2 songs I wrote, a couple of songs on iPad, you know, a garage band where I played the guitars and all that. But even so, when we transferred it from that idea to the recording, it was in the same realm, you know. So all the songs were written in the same realm, with all the different guitar players. You know, you got Craig Goldie, who was heavy. You got Ron. Ron played on a song called "In the Night," which is sort of a mid-tempo song, like the tempo of "Rainbow in the Dark" kind of thing, which we consider the ballad of the album. You know, because everything else is pretty heavy and rocking and fast stuff, slow, medium tempo, you know, up tempo, and heavy, and a lot of playing, a lot of guitar screaming. Because when we signed the deal with SPV, they wanted like screaming vocals, screaming guitars, and great drum rhythms, and that's what we gave them.
Exactly. It's all in the same vein, but obviously when you hear Joel play as opposed to hearing somebody else play like Craig Goldie, there's different styles.
Yeah.
So the music changes slightly, and the songs are a little bit different, you know. Especially the solos. The solos are going to be totally different.
Yeah, like they'll be able to tell that that's Bumblefoot or that's Joel.
Yeah, Bumblefoot, Craig, and then you got Joel, and this my friend Iggy Guadero from Poland. He was we did an album called Whammy.
Yeah, Artie's the guy that wrote Sinister with. He's a monster player.
Wow.
You know, I found him. And I had
a lot of different styles on there too.
Of course.
With the guitars, you know.
Of course. So because this is music that you two have done together, you know, the brothers in the studio together, I mean, you know, when you like look at musicians who are siblings like Max and Igor Cavalera, for example, you know, they have a strong bond musically and making music together. So the 2 brothers working together, was that like a different experience in the studio as opposed to the other people you've worked with?
Well, no, because we did so many drum clinics together. We went on the road with this project before,
we
so
80 shows with drum wars around the world.
Okay.
Over the last few years, so yeah, and we're brothers, you know, and so we, even like when we're playing drums, you know, like Vinny will look at me and he'll start a fill and he'll look at me and I'll know to finish it.
Yeah.
You know, because there's like this communication that we have all our life, you know.
Of course.
And so it's the same thing happened in the studio. We even brought our older brother and our sister in to sing on the song Drum Wars. They were singing backgrounds and Vinny was engineering. So we had the whole family in the studio.
We were going to use them on another song, but they wanted too much money.
Oh, really?
Forget it. This is your first album you're singing on. You more money?
Yeah, my sister's going around going, "When's my first album coming out?"
I think it went to the head.
They said it, not me. But now a lot of modern day drummers have taken so many inspiration from you guys, whether it would have been, you know, Tommy Lee or Richard Christie or
Who's Richard Christie?
From Charred Walls of the Dam. He played in Death. He was also featured on the Howard Stern Show.
He is featured. He's a writer.
Oh, really?
He was featured on the Howard Stern Show doing what?
A writer, right?
He's a writer on the Stern Show.
Oh, really?
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Yeah. So with all these modern drummers,
You should definitely get us on there and write for us.
you should feature him on the next Drum War. From talking to you guys and seeing him together, that's going to be a funny one right there.
Okay, yeah, okay.
But have newer drummers ever inspired you guys at all and stuff like that?
Well, as we said before, there's not a lot of new drummers that we know because, you know, different than like the younger generation. They sit at the internet and they find new bands. We don't do that. I mean, I don't have time to sit at the internet and find new bands. We used to be able to turn the radio on and find new bands. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of these bands that make it, some of the drummers may be fantastic. Like I heard a drummer, Vinny, these guys opened up for you, that cherry,
Buck cherry.
black cherries.
Buck cherry.
What is
Blackstone
it?
cherry.
Blackstone cherry. Yeah.
Blackstone Cherry.
And I found
Blame
out
it on
that-
the boom boom.
Yeah, I found out that they just on their latest album did one of our Cactus songs called Evil. And the drummer was, in that song there's a lot of drum fills, and the guy was great. I don't know his name, but he sounded great. But that's what I'm saying. There's a lot of bands that have great drummers and stuff, but because you're not getting albums no more, there's no drum heroes, no new drum heroes,
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate.
It is unfortunate, because we used to, growing up, I mean, I was doing Vanilla Fudge and all that stuff, and then 73, 74, Stuart Copeland came out in 78, which is 11 years after I made it. But, he was awesome, and here you have a new drum hero,
Yeah.
But now that don't happen anymore. So it takes these bands years and years to make it. They're not on the radio, and not that radio I listen to. If you listen to classic rock radio, all you hear is the same stuff. There's no new radio in New York. There's no new radio in L.A. It's terrible. And you listen even to Sirius radio. And like, how do you hear new stuff?
The internet.
Yeah.
There's so much stuff. It's almost confusing.
Yeah. But, I mean, have newer drummers ever inspired you at all?
I think at my age, I'm inspired out.
Really?
I'm done with inspired. Yeah. I mean, there's just too many things out there. I was inspired totally by all the great drummers from the past, and yeah, there's some great drummers out now, but that doesn't inspire me anymore. I go, and even the thing, I can't do that. I don't play that. But I just got so much music in my life. I just concentrate on that, and I'm already inspired.
Now,
we were both inspired by the greatest drummer of all time, Buddy Rich. He was the greatest. I mean, he did amazing things for the drum world. And there's nobody else like him, because even these new players that are great, like there's a couple of woman players that are really awesome, but they're very it's very clinical.
of course, I'd imagine.
Buddy played from the heart. He never even took a lesson. He was just unbelievable.
Of course. And it's funny that you mentioned that, because a lot of, I've actually worked in musical gear for my whole life. That's the family business. But, a lot of technology, like, has, you've heard singers, a lot of old singers complain about auto-tune. And, recently one drummer kind of said that it's kind of sad that a lot of drummers rely on, like, some technical elements of it and stuff like that. I mean, I was wondering what your take on that would be.
Well, the auto-tune is, I mean, I could see, using it if in a situation, but not, in the studio. Like, I mean, like if you do a live show and you have a couple of background vocals might be out of tune, you fix it. Okay, fine. But to go in a studio and actually sing, you're a singer, and you go in and you're singing, and you can't stay on key. Forget about it. What are you doing there?
Playing drums and not being able to use the kick drum or something.
Of course.
I mean, and we use Pro Tools when we record and all that, just for editing and stuff. But we don't go in and put together drum parts on Pro Tools. I don't know. I don't really know how these new drummers record. But I particularly like analog. Vinny likes digital.
Yeah.
Ooh.
So on the album, my drums are analog mostly, and his drums are mostly digital.
Was there a fight in the studio on which one was better at all?
No, you could hear the difference. How the digital, my drums just sound amazing, and his drums all washed out.
Don't listen to him. My drums have more bite. You can actually hear the difference, especially on the songs that we play individually.
Of course.
They're different sounds. I like the analog sound. I think it has more just bites better. But personal preference. He likes that, which actually worked good for us because, when we're trying to distinguish who's playing what, okay, that's me or that's him. Because sometimes we play similar, and I don't know who's who. Yeah. Like there's one song we did called Suddenly, where Vinny played the intro, I played the first verse, and I played the chorus, and he played the next verse, the next re-intro, and the next verse, And if you didn't know, if it had the same drum sound, the digital, it'd be very hard to distinguish who's who. But the fact that we have that difference in sound, you could almost hear who's playing.
Of course.
You know, so
Which is actually really interesting because you two drummers. Like I've once like researched like the personnel of a record before, and like it said like, oh, one drummer just did this one song and then the other drummer did the rest, but I actually couldn't tell the difference. So with this record, it almost seems like you'll be able to tell who's drumming on the.
Yeah.
And the fact that we mixed it, me on the right and Vinny on the left. See, that's the old way. Like all these, like Buddy Rich and Max Rose had an album, they were like that, and Gene Krupa and Buddy Rich, they were like that, you know. And that way you can distinguish what's going on. If you're listening with the phones and ear candy, I do a fill and he answers me, you could hear it go across the stereo.
Oh, that's.
You see, that's what a cool. Most drums are mixed in the middle, like on 3 tracks each. He played by himself and I played by myself. We use the idea of what we did live. You know, live we both play together, and live we both play individually. So on those tracks, we mix the drums in the middle. That's what the normal way the mixed drums are. The middle toms go across, but the snare bass drums are in the middle. And that's when you hear my drums that sound a lot better than Vinny's drums when his are in the middle. No, I mean.
You want to fight that?
Nah, it's useless. I know it's the truth is. You know. But you said an interesting point. Your drummer played on an album. You couldn't tell the difference with the other drummer. That's something that's happening today where the drummers don't have a sound. Like when you hear Bonzo play a Zepp track or something, you know, it's Bonzo. There's a sound and a style. I think there's a little bit of lacking that these days, you know, with,
It's all
you know.
because it's done clinically on Pro Tools. Everybody, they pad up the drums, you know, they pad them up with pillows. I mean, you might as well play the couch, you know.
Well, I mean, yeah, I'm really glad that you kind of pointed because, you know, like drums, like, you know, obviously they're not like the guitar, you know, it's not like you can hear a singer and say, oh, I could tell that that's that singer, that's that singer. And, you know, some guitar players have a very distinct sound. You know, drums, some people, obviously, like, I would say that the most important part of drums is staying in time and keeping a beat, holding everything together. The famous saying is that if your drummer sucks, your band sucks.
Yeah.
But that being said, like, I've never really heard, like I said, like, was able to tell the difference. It's like, okay, you hear the drum, the fills, you keep the beat.
A lot of guys tune the drums the same. They tune the snare the same, and like Carmine said, they deaden the bass drums. And when they play, it's a very generic sound. There's nothing there.
Dead kind of.
And they play good,
sound.
but the sound and the style's a little.
And they might
Like-
even be triggering the bass drums, and you know,
Even
everybody
Ringo
got the same sound.
Sound and a style.
Of course.
Ringo's not a technical drummer, but he's a great drummer because of the creative parts.
And apparently he put Ludwig on the map and stuff
Yeah,
like that.
and he played a certain way. You knew it was him playing back on the Beatles songs.
I mean, you can take a lot of the drummers. You know, my son is 20s, and he listens to a lot of bands. You know, like his favorite one's Avenged Sevenfold.
That's one of my favorite bands.
Okay, you know,
I like
and
the
I listen
song.
to a lot of it, and you know, I like when they're singing. I don't like the vocals, but musically they're doing some great stuff. But they've been through three different drummers, and all the drum sounds are the same.
Yeah, I could agree.
You know what I'm saying? And then all the other bands that follow, As I Lay Dying and all this other bands, all the drum sounds are the same.
I agree. And
You
not,
can't identify. That's why you can't come up with a new guy that's like an icon, because they all sound the same because of the technology of the way they're recording.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% because Avenged Sevenfold for the new record recruited the former drummer of Bad Religion, and I love that band too. So I was thinking that, oh, maybe we'll have some, like, you know, Bad Religion elements in there, but no, it's and not to discredit what the other drummers have done, but it was like the previous drummer
Versus
2.0.
like what we're talking about, like, you know, and I play with Vanilla Fudge and Cactus and blah, blah, and then when I play with Rod Stewart, I brought the same drum sound to Rod Stewart, a natural, kick-ass, big, fat drum sound.
And they were able to tell it was you.
And you can tell it was me. You know, when he plays with his stuff, you can tell it was him. When Bonzo played,
I had to at first adjust to what they sounded like and what Bill Ward played, but then eventually when we did the first album, Our Rules, I didn't play like Bill, you know, and the sound was different than Bill's, a different sound. And that's what I did, and that brought my element into the band somewhat.
It's identifying drum fills, you know, identifying stuff that you do. Today, they're all pretty much doing the same, you know, in our day, we used to follow the bass player.
Really?
Yeah, the foot followed the bass. like R&B. Okay, rock has always been like that. Only in this new generation of heavy metal or whatever you call it, the bass drums follow the guitar. You know, it's that digga down, digga down, digga 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 digga. The guitars go diddle diddle down, diddle down, diddle. They're not following the bass.
Yeah.
You know,
I've noticed that a lot in actually a Fear Factory.
That's the difference in the sound. So they're following guitar. So they're all having the same samples. They all have the same padded up drums. The guitars sound the same. I mean, even Avenged Sevenfold, you can't say that. You know, if that guitar player played somewhere else, that he would go, oh, that's. I don't even know his name.
Sinister Gates.
Yeah, that's so and so. You know.
Yeah.
You know.
It's a good point.
Well, we have a surprise here. He's here now.
Oh, sorry, dude.
Come on in.
No, but like, I mean, you know, we get when Jeff Beck plays, you know, it's Jeff Beck. You could hear Jimmy Page playing. You know when Hendrix is playing. You know when Eddie Van Halen's playing. You know, you can tell Richie Blackmore. You can tell Yngwie Malmsteen.
Of course.
You can tell all these guys' styles. But today, you can't.
It's definitely hard.
That's why there's no big icon. That's why Joe Bonamassa is probably big, because he plays like old school, and he's a guitar hero today.
Of course.
He's like one of the only new guitar heroes that have been around, but he's been around forever.
Mm-hmm.
And I did a video for Fender like in the 80s when he was like 14 years old, you know?
Wow.
Yeah, and he was a prodigy then, you know?
Of course.
But there's, you know, I don't know who the new guitar icons are, but that's different. Like, you know, you don't hear them on the radio.
Yeah, I mean, I just turned 24, so like I was growing up with like bands like Avenged Sevenfold and As They Lay Dying. So
like my son.
yeah, so maybe people who like grew up with it and like remembered when those records came out, maybe they could identify with it a little bit better and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but I mean, but still, even if they get played on the radio, they don't say it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Like, who's that? Yeah, like I like on Sirius Radio too. You play the new stuff. I hear stuff on those whatever new. I forgot the channel was that plays new heavy rock. You know.
Oh, Sirius XM.
Like
Octane.
what is it?
Octane.
Yeah. Octane. But they don't announce it really. They play the stuff, and then it goes away, and then they talk a minute, and sometimes they back announce it. But do you know who you're listening to?
Yeah. I could agree.
That's part of the problem too. Even you know, you don't never in classic rock they don't have to back announce, but you've heard those songs so many times, you know who it is, and everybody has their own style.
Of course.
You know when Zeppelin's playing, you know when it's Deep Purple, you know it's Tom Petty, you know it's Fleetwood Mac even, you know. But these new bands, everyone's recording the same, they sound the same.
Yeah.
You know.
I could understand that. And like on the topic of gear and like bands evolving and stuff like that, you know, because you guys have obviously been playing since the 70s and stuff like that, and you know, 60s. Okay, my bad. But like with like gear evolving and stuff like that, I mean, did you guys kind of stick with like the same gear that you've always been using?
Well, drum wise, companies wise, we haven't, but the same. We pretty much have the same basic size drums and the same wood. We're both playing. Well, you play the reflexes now. What, ash?
It's alder.
Alderwood, yeah.
Alderwood.
Yeah, and it's really great sound. We both play D drum, really great sounding drums. And I play. My new kit is alder and maple, you know, and then I have a maple kit. But the sizes are pretty much the same. And, you know, they got bigger and smaller depending on the band. His kit with Heaven and Hell.
You know, at one point, bass drums got bigger and longer.
And there were 3 of them.
Yeah, 3 or 4 of them. I hate those bass drums. I hate them. Mm-hmm. And now, all of a sudden, like my new kit from D-Drum is a 14-inch, like the 70s. This gives it a lot of punch, a lot of kick. And the wood is alder and maple together. It's a new thing called the Max drums, and they sound great. But it's funny because they went bigger and bigger. Toms got bigger, then they went smaller. Bass drums got small. Went back.
I went with D-Drum before Vinny. When I went with them, they had these really long bass drums. And I said, dude, look, cut them down. You know, let's do a 14 or a 15-inch bass drum, not 24. Because when you hit it, you can't hear it. It's too far away. You know? So like I've been playing since 2000 when I went with Slingerland, like probably since 2004, I've been playing 14-inch bass drums, which is the original size bass drums I played. Even when I was with Ludwig, I had the 26. I was the first to have the big bass drums. but then the pedal wouldn't hit in the middle. So I reduced it to 24 and I added an inch. So I had 24 by 15s for years. Nobody had that. And that's what started them making bass drums longer and tom-toms longer from Ludwig. But then it got ridiculous with the bass drum, 20 inch, 24, you know, like you couldn't hear them. So now we're both playing 14-inch bass drums and they sound like cannons.
That's awesome. And so do you think like a big ass drum kit, like something Mike Portnoy would use, you think it's like...
Oh, Vinny's drum kit was way bigger than that.
Yeah, the last kid on the Heaven Hell tour had like 21 pieces,
Really?
most of them up in the air. And then after the tour, I had shoulder surgery.
So
So I
obviously
couldn't
couldn't have
move.
it up there
It was
anymore.
like playing up here, I was playing backwards,
Yeah.
and I'd come off the
Cut
gig
the
in the
shoulders
tour bus,
down.
and I'd be burning.
I had two rotator cuffs from the cymbals up here, you know. But Mike Portnoy got his inspiration from Terry Bozzio. You ever see his drum set?
I haven't seen his...
It's got about 200 pieces to it. He's got every
This poor
No.
drum tech.
in drum set. He's got like toms, cymbals. Look up Terry Bozzio's drum set online. You won't believe it.
Oh my god, I do
But
not
that's-
envy
that was
who's
Mike's
roadie.
influence.
So before we go, one thing I want to ask is because I know that you dedicated this record to Ronnie James Dio, may God rest his soul, and you know, between his death and now, we've lost a lot of known rock icons
Oh,
like
yeah.
Lemmy and Chris Cornell, and it's
Unbelievable.
really devastating. Were you kind of like when you were dedicating this to Dio, like were you how much did that influence the sound and stuff like that?
Well, we wrote the song. I wrote the song with the King Cobra guys years ago called Monsters and Heroes. Paul Shortino wrote the lyrics. Me and him came up with the chorus, but Paul wrote the actual lyrics. And Paul was managed by Ronnie, okay? Vinny played with Ronnie, and Ronnie was a friend of mine from before Rainbow, okay? So we used that, I had that song sitting around, so we used that song to get the record deal, you know? And then when we actually got it, we re-recorded with Vinny, and as we were doing, we said, you know what, with this song being so about Ronnie, and everyone's done tributes for Ronnie, but nobody wrote a song about Ronnie, you know? And the lyrics, you didn't read the lyrics, so you didn't hear the lyrics really.
I didn't.
When you read these lyrics, you know, like it's sing a song, singer, you're the man on the mountain who rocked the world with his songs. You know, lift our spirits higher to the magic that he gave us for so long, you know, in his songs, you know. Great lyrics, you know, monsters and heroes, dragons and rainbows in the dark. Monsters and heroes search for the sacred heart. It's all about Ronnie. It's not a tribute song of a rainbow in the dark with different people playing. This song is written about Ronnie.
Celebrating his life and his
Right.
legacy.
So we said, well, we should dedicate the album to Ronnie, and the only lyrics we put on the song on the album was those lyrics. And we dedicated to Elliot Rubinson as well, who's used to own D drum and Dean guitars. I played with Vinny a lot in different things. I played with him in Cactus. I played with him with Michael Schenker, and he passed away this year. So we said, let's dedicate it to Ronnie and Elliot. You know.
And we dedicated the album to Buddy Rich and Gene Krupa, guys who started
we said
drums.
inspired by Buddy Rich and Gene Krupa. So.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
That's beautiful, and I know that Dio.
And
would
for
greatly
$59, we'll put your name down there too if you want. $59.95.
Yeah,
Do you
go on
take-
and
do you
put-
take
could-
cards?
you
You want
did
one?
it, you
Yeah,
could-
that's two.
We'll put his name on it, you know. We'll do it for the next Pledge Music campaign. Yeah, we'll let you guys know.
Well, again, I want to truly thank you guys so
thank
much
you, man.
for your time sitting
Hey,
down
thank
with.
you.
Thank you so much,
for doing
everybody. Be sure to pick up this new kick-ass record coming out October 27th. You do not want to miss it.
Appice, Sinister.